Hello, loves. I'm sitting here on this beautiful sunny Saturday with my hoodie on. I've got my cap on because we've got lots of yard work to go do after this. But first, you and I have a date. We have a date to talk about hope and sparks of hope. We'll be getting together live on a weekly basis, probably for the next 2 to 2.5 months. And we're going to go through all of the chapters in my book, Awakening the Lightwarriorwithin. We'll read from it a little bit today as well. And we'll have these weekly chats where you and I get to connect, and we get to dive a little bit deeper into the subjects of each chapter in the book. So make sure to mark your calendar for those. We'll get started today with a prayer. There's been a lot of darkness in the world this week, a lot of tragedy, a lot of lives taken needlessly. So we'll start with a prayer. We'll start with the Shanti Deva prayer like we did last time. And then we'll get into our talk. So wherever you are, take a few minutes just to take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your nose. Make sure that you're comfortable. If you know the prayer, you can recite it with me. If not, you can just close your eyes and hold space while we recite it. Of course, if you're driving, if you're doing anything that requires your focus, please keep your eyes opened. But otherwise, let's just take a minute to hold space with each other, and for everybody in the world right now who might be suffering. So just take a deep breath in and release it, and let's pray. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. And so it is, and so it shall be. Let's start with a passage from the book, and then we'll dive into today's discussion. This is from the chapter on Sparks of Hope, from page 24. If you have the book and you want to read along, we're at the bottom of the page. We'll talk a little bit about how this relates to today's discussion. Take a moment to recognize where you are. Recognize not only where you want to go, but also just how far you've come. The path you've walked has led you to this moment, and it isn't without purpose. The darkest nights prepare us for the brightest mornings. Start by honoring where you are, no matter how bleak things may seem. These difficult moments and trials are preparing you, strengthening you, so you can step into something greater. To deny where we are in our lives and on our journey only keeps us trapped in the darkness. We are powerless to change what we don't accept. Whether you're ready to make a change or just starting to open yourself up to the idea, the first step involves taking inventory of your life, acknowledging what's not working, naming it if you can, and reaching out for help if you're ready. So that's from the chapter on Sparks of Hope. Let's talk a little bit first about the darkness that we get plunged into, and specifically what plunges us into the darkness. There could be a number of things: heartbreak, heartache, breakups, diagnoses, losses in general, losses of jobs, losses of homes, losses of individuals in our lives. There are lots of different things that can plunge us into the darkness. And depending on where you are right now on your journey in your life, can really dictate where you are on your path and how ready you are to emerge from the darkness. So there's two sides to the darkness that I want to talk about. And the first is, are you actually ready to emerge from the darkness? How long have you been in it? Is this something that you have been carrying with you for weeks, months, years, decades even, and you're ready to finally emerge? You're ready to realize that this isn't working for you anymore. You realize that you are stuck in a rut and you are ready to start climbing your way out of that darkness. That might be where you are. Or the darkness could be fairly new. It could be the result of, like I said, a breakup, of heartache, of infidelity, of a divorce, of a diagnosis. And perhaps it's really fresh. Perhaps you're not ready to let go of the darkness. And that's okay too. And that's the first thing I want to talk about today, is allowing ourselves to succumb to the darkness. It might seem like a scary notion because we anticipate or we fear that by succumbing to the darkness that it will swallow us, it will consume us, and we won't make our way out. But there is value to the darkness. There is value to being in those dark and those moments in our lives when we are in despair. There is value to allowing ourselves to be coddled by our sorrow and by our grief. So there is a lot of value in succumbing to the darkness. And if this is fresh, if whatever has plunged you into this darkness is new, there may be value for you in sitting with it for a while and letting yourself be coddled by that sorrow, by that grief, allowing yourself to be in the comfort of that sorrow. And I know that it can seem a little unorthodox to talk about sorrow and grief as comforting. But there is a certain comfort to it. There is a certain comfort to letting us be engulfed by those emotions, letting us process those emotions, those feelings. So allowing ourselves to succumb to the darkness is really important in terms of how we actually progress through it. So depending on where you are right now in your journey, like I said, if you're new to the darkness, if something recently has shaken your world, has turned it upside down, and you are not ready to emerge from the darkness yet, you're not ready to pick yourself back up, to dust off your knees, and start reaching for the light, that's okay. That's okay to be where you are right now and to sit with that darkness, to sit with that sorrow, and to let yourself feel it, to let yourself be engulfed with it, to let yourself be coddled by it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think often we hear everybody telling us, oh, you got to get back out there. You got to get back up on the horse. You got to pick yourself back up and dust off your knees. You got to keep going. Life goes on. You got to keep moving. And while it does, it absolutely does, there is no benefit in rushing that process. There's no benefit. You're not doing yourself any favors by rushing through it. Often we'll hear our people telling us these things because watching us be in pain, watching us be in sorrow, watching us be in grief is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to watch someone you love suffer or watch someone you love go through heartbreak. So we try to lift them out of it. But the thing is, if you're not ready to emerge from that darkness, if you're not ready to lift yourself out of it, there's nobody that's going to be able to help you or to pull you out of it. And to try to pull you out of it prematurely will only do more harm than good. Because our emergence from the darkness, it's not fast, it's not quick. It's a journey. It's a journey that spans, time, depending on the severity of your circumstances and what has plunged you into that darkness in the first place. There's no emergency exit. There's nothing that's going to allow you to break free from the darkness quickly. There are some things that will help you on that path that we'll talk about today. But there's no quick fix here. There's no quick solution. There's no 3 steps that I can give you that, tomorrow morning you will be free from the darkness and you will be ready to go about your day. There's a process to it, and that darkness, that grief, that sorrow, it's there for a reason. And getting underneath it and understanding why it's there, or if you're not even ready to go that far or to go that deep and try to understand why it's there, just letting yourself feeling it and letting yourself succumb to it could be of great value, and that could be where you are right now on your path. So giving yourself permission to really be in it, to really be in those emotions, I think is absolutely vital. These things that they happen to us, I won't say that they happen for a reason, and we'll talk more about that in next week's Light Talk, which is on letting go of why and our search for meaning. But there is always something to be gained from our darkness, from our sorrow, from our pain. There is always some light to be found in that, some strength to be found in that. some hope to be found in that. So that brings me to the nature of today's discussion, which is hope, and looking for hope in dark times. We are living in dark times right now. There is a lot of sorrow. There is a lot of tragedy. There are a lot of unspeakable things going on in the world. And I know that a lot of us are looking for hope. We're searching for it. And there are different ways that we can go about finding hope and gaining hope and bringing hope into our lives. But what I want to talk about first, and what I want to, the point that I really want to reiterate here, is that hope, it's not the be all end all, and it's not this giant ray of light that will come into your life and suddenly everything will be better and everything will be perfect. Hope is absolutely found in the light, but when we are in the darkness, looking for that light can seem next to impossible, especially when we've been in the darkness for an extended period of time. Looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, looking for the way out, can seem daunting. It can seem impossible. It can seem like it's not there, just because it is so out of reach. It is so far away that we can't necessarily see where we're going. We can't necessarily see the path to our emergence. We can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But that doesn't mean that hope isn't there. It doesn't mean that there isn't light around us. So how do we find that light? How do we curate it? How do we cultivate it when we're in the darkness? There's a few different ways that I have found. The first and the most effective way that I have found has been prayer. And now this isn't a talk about religion. It's not a talk about spirituality. We'll talk about spirituality later on in another session. But there is a value in prayer and learning to lean on something larger than yourself, learning to look to a higher power, a higher force, a higher sense of guidance to support you, to make you feel like you are not alone on this journey, like you are not alone in the darkness, you're not alone in your path. There is great comfort to be found in that. There is great comfort to be found in leaning on our faith. And that can mean a number of different things for you. It could mean, God. It could be your guardian angel. It could be your spirit guides. It could be, the spirit or the memory of a loved one who is gone and is no longer with us. It could be the universe or just love in general. Whoever it is that you choose to pray to, whoever it is that you choose to lean on for support in moments of trial and tribulation, in those moments of darkness, that is what helps us find strength. That's what helps us find fortitude in our darkness, in our weakest moments, when we've hit the ground. Being able to hit our knees and ask for help, if you're ready, if you're at that point where you are looking for hope, where you are looking for a path to emerge from the darkness. Learning to pray and to ask for that guidance, to ask for that help, to ask for that support is the first step. It's not always going to come in giant, flashy ways, or even ways that you may expect. The hope, the guidance, it comes in small moments, in sparks, and that's why I call it sparks of hope in the book, because it's these tiny, fleeting moments that if we don't take the time to recognize them for what they are, they pass us by, and we forget that there is help out there for us, that there is support out there for us, that there is love and guidance and connection all around us. These tiny sparks, they have the opportunity to pass us by if we don't have our eyes open to them. So the first step is really prayer and asking for help, asking for guidance. The second is opening your eyes to the guidance and to the support that's there around you. And like I said, it will come in small, fleeting moments, in seconds, in small gestures from friends and from loved ones. We have to remember that, God, the universe, the law of attraction, your spirit guides, your angels, your guardian angels, whatever you choose to believe, they work through people. So it is the people in our lives that are the people that will come into our lives that will help bring this hope, that will help bring this light into our lives, that will help bring this renewed sense of faith, of hope, of a better tomorrow, a promise for a better tomorrow. It's those people that come into our lives, or people that perhaps are already in our lives that have suddenly, acquired a new skill or a new interest and are suddenly there to help you when your moment of need. These tiny sparks, these tiny moments, they build up, they connect. When you recognize them and when you acknowledge them for what they are, they compound each other. And over time they build, and that becomes the light. That becomes the hope and the guidance that allows you to emerge from the darkness, that allows you to see the path out of the darkness and, the light at the end of the tunnel. But it's all of those small sparks, those small moments that we need to open our eyes to. A Course in Miracles talks about the fact that the light, love, hope, guidance, it's there, it's all around us. The only reason that we can't see it is because we have become accustomed to placing our hands over our eyes. So we're sitting there in the darkness saying, I can't see, there's no light. But we forget that we are the ones with our hands over our eyes. And that is very much, that's very much where we are when we're in our darkness. We become so blinded by our pain, by our sorrow, by our grief, that we put blinders on, that we put our hands over our eyes, and we can't see the hope that is available to us, the light that is available to us, the love that can be extended from those around us, the compassion that is already there. So the prayer, that act of asking for help, of opening ourselves up to the possibility of more, the possibility of something better, the possibility of a brighter tomorrow, asking for that allows us to start removing our hands from our eyes so that we can see, that we can awaken ourselves to the presence of love and light that is already around us, that is already surrounding us and there to guide us and there to provide support. So that's the second thing. The first was prayer, asking for help. The second was beginning to remove, our hands from our eyes and just really seeing the opportunities around us, seeing everybody who is there to support us and guide us, and starting to acknowledge and collect all of these little sparks of light that will help guide us on our path and guide us on our emergence from the darkness. And then the third thing, and this I have found to be the most helpful, because often as we begin to emerge from the darkness, we get stuck in these little ruts, where we fall back to old ways. We fall back to the comfort that we were getting from the grief, from the sorrow, from being in that darkness, because there is a certain amount of comfort that we get from that. A lot of us identify with that grief, identify with that sorrow, identify with being in the darkness because it allows us to play the victim card or allows us to be the martyr. And that becomes very much part of our identity and our narrative and how we see ourselves and how we talk about ourselves. And we find comfort in that. We find a lot of familiarity in being in that darkness, being in that story, in that narrative, being in that grief, in that suffering. So often on our path of emergence from the darkness, we will fall back. We will stumble back. We'll fall back into our grief and into our sorrow. And we get into these ruts where, we begin to ask ourselves, why am I back here? Like I was doing so much better. And, yesterday was a good day. And now I feel like I've taken 3 steps back. And, how do I continue to move forward? And the most effective way I have found to do that is through helping someone else. There is a quote by, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, it's by Aung San Suu Kyi, that says, when you're feeling helpless, go out and help someone. And doing that, allowing ourselves to take the focus off of ourselves, off of our own needs, off of our own drama, our own sorrow, our own grief, and going out and being of service to someone else, helping someone else, allows us to move out of that rut and to be of service and to change our vibrations and to change our energy and to change our mindset and our thoughts and our frame of mind. And it can be simple gestures. It can be calling somebody who needs, who needs an ear, who needs somebody to talk to, or, especially right now that we're in this pandemic and we're in, lockdown after lockdown after lockdown. Just being that familiar voice to somebody who is home and who is alone and has been isolated from people for an extended period of time, being that sense of comfort for them, or even just being an opportunity for them to rant and, just get things off of their chest and free up those blocked energies and blocked emotions that so many of us are carrying right now because we're confined to these spaces. Being that shoulder for somebody to cry on, being an ear for somebody in need who needs to talk through something, lending a helping hand to people, if you do have the opportunity to be with people physically in person, the opportunity to be with them and to really lend a hand and help. All of these ways of helping others allows us to get out of our own helplessness, and provide support and raise our energy and raise our vibrations, and will instill not only hope for others, but a greater sense of hope in ourselves. Just being able to provide that support, that compassion, that help for others, helps remove us from those ruts. And it's all of those little small collective moments that they compound the light, and they allow us to emerge from it. They allow us to emerge from our darkness and from our sorrow. And that path of emergence, it can be long. I'll speak from experience. When I was with my former husband and found out that he had been unfaithful, and was going through the process of trying to pick my life back up, and emerge from that darkness and get off of that rock bottom that I had hit over and over and over again. It wasn't an overnight process. It wasn't something that changed from one day to the next, but it was something that in every moment that I would hit my knees and pray and ask for support, ask for guidance, the next moments were a little bit lighter. They were a little bit easier. I felt a little bit more guided, a little bit more loved. I felt held. I felt supported. So it's all of those little moments that provide us momentary amounts of relief and support. When you stack them all one after each other, that's what kind of builds the path. That's what kind of builds the yellow brick road in front of us. It's hard to take that first step because we're in the darkness. We can't see where we're about to put our foot. We can't see the path before us, but we have to surrender, part of our grief, part of our sorrow, to a higher power, to something greater than ourselves for support and for guidance. And if you can hear background noise, that is just the my home, and the fact that we have a family and children and dogs. So I apologize for any background noise. But leaning on a higher power for that sense of support and that sense of guidance, it allows us to put one foot in front of the other, even if we can't see the path before us, even if we see that the path before us might seem dark and the road hasn't been laid out before us. Leaning on that sense of higher power, leaning on our faith, it instills this sense of hope and this sense of trust that I don't need to see the full path before me. I just need to take the next step, and I can trust that once I've taken that next step, the next step will be provided to me or will be shown to me. And that path out of the darkness, those stairs climbing out of the darkness, will emerge in front of me. Very much like we see in movies and cartoons. Surrendering, praying, asking for hope, asking for guidance, asking for support. It allows us to build that invisible, that imaginary staircase in front of us that allows us to climb and that allows us to emerge and that allows us to reach for that better tomorrow, that brighter morning. Because the darkness, I know how debilitating it can feel. I know how engulfing it can feel. And like I said at the beginning, you might be being plunged into the darkness, that experience might be very fresh for you. It might be very new. You might not yet be at a place where you are ready to start working on emerging from it. And that is absolutely okay. If that's where you're at, be okay with that and give yourself permission to feel it and to sit in it and to let yourself be coddled by it. And then once you're ready to start looking for the light, once you're ready to start looking for hope, ask for help, ask for guidance. And the best medium I found to do that has been prayer. Leaning on prayer, leaning on my faith, leaning on my belief in a higher power and something greater than myself has been the fastest path to emerging from the darkness. It won't be a fast path, but it will be the fastest way to emerging from it. The process will still take time. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen as we emerge from the darkness, and we'll talk more about that next week as well, about the healing aspect of it. But that process, that journey will take us time. But if we can lean on support, if we can lean on our belief that we are supported and that we are guided and that we are loved and that we are held, that path, that journey becomes a little bit easier, because hope ultimately is found in the light. It is found in those sparks, in those moments that different people bring into our lives, that different situations bring into our lives. So with that, I just want to remind you that we'll be here again next week. Next week, we'll be talking about chapter 2 from the book, which is letting go of why, and letting go of our need to, when we're in the darkness, when we've received that diagnosis, when we've been faced with infidelity or the heartbreak, that need to understand why all of this is happening, why it's happening to us. We'll start to dismantle all of that next week. And really dig into it and untangle those emotions and where they come from, and the disservice that they do to us. So we'll begin to untangle and dismantle all of that next week. So next Saturday, mark your calendars, we'll be here again at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. But in the meantime, if you're in the darkness, if you're ready to start emerging from it, if you're searching for hope, if you're searching for light, if you're searching for love, pray to whatever makes sense to you. Don't worry about the semantics. There is no one up there saying, damn it, they got it wrong again, they used the wrong name. Use whatever feels right to you, whatever your heart is drawn to, whether that be your guardian angels or God or the goddess or your spirit guides, whatever makes sense, whatever resonates with you. Just make it a practice of hitting your knees and asking for help. Make it a practice of learning to rely on something bigger than yourself when you are in sorrow, when you are in your grief. Asking for that help, asking for that guidance so that you can begin to emerge. And then reaching out for help, from friends, from family, from loved ones, from people in your community. I know that a lot of us are isolated right now and we can't see each other in person, but reach out, by phone, by FaceTime, by text message, reach out for support and ask for it. Ask for the help that you need. And if you don't feel like you have anybody that you can ask for help or that you can rely on for support, reach out to me, slide into my DMs. Feel free to ask your questions, to ask for support, to ask for help. I'm here, and it is absolutely my pleasure, and I consider myself eternally grateful and appreciative of the fact that I get to do this and I get to provide that support and that guidance to people who need it. So if you are feeling helpless, if you are feeling like there is nobody that you can reach out to or that you can rely on right now for support or for understanding or even just to lend an ear, feel free to slide into my DMs. That is why I am here, and it would be my absolute pleasure to hear from you. So with that, my friends, I will wish you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you for being here live with me. I see a few of you have here and have waved, so thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here live. For those of you who are catching the replay, sending you all of my love and my deepest, deepest, deepest gratitude for being here with us. Love.